I think the room is full, so we'll crack on. My name's Steve Anderson. I run a business called Lighthouse Software, and it's good to be here today at the TechNExt Data and AI Hub. And this is the last talk of the day, so I'm calling it the keynote. So I'm going to talk about AI, right? Okay, but first of all, we're going to talk about magic. When I was a kid, magic was my main hobby. I used to spend all my pocket money buying props and practicing in front of the mirror and impressing my friends at school, I like to think. And hopefully my skills are still fresh, because we're going to start with a quick magic trick. So I need a volunteer from the audience, please. Don't put your hands up at once. Yes, you can stay sitting there. What's your name, sir? Ed. Ed, thank you for volunteering, Ed. All right, what I want you to do, Ed, is just think of any two-digit number.
Okay.
So between 10 and 99.
Okay.
But not 37, because everyone says 37. And just think of it, okay, in your head. And then what I want you to do is like picture your number in like really big font in the sky, in between us, right? As well as kind of here, yeah, in the room. And then once you've pictured it in the sky there, sort of force it towards my head, so it comes into my head so I can see what it is, okay? Hopefully this works, okay. Just a bit harder. Yeah. It's been a while. Hopefully this works. Okay. Ed. Was it Ed?
It is.
Yes, my memory's terrible. Ed, can you please reveal the number that you chose?
62.
62. And Ed, we don't know each other, right?
We don't know each other.
I've not seen you outside and bribed you with a fiver. Okay. Ed, would you please take that card and read to the audience what it says on there?
It says 62.
Thank you. I think that's the right response. So why the hell have I done a magic trick and a talk about AI? And there is a reason, I promise. And the reason is because AI is a bit similar to magic, like this. Like when you don't understand how it works, it seems impossible. But when you actually understand the trick, it's really simple. And I am going to tell you how this trick works at the end, but I'm going to do it at the end so everyone pays attention. So to show you how simple AI is under the hood, we're going to build our own AI model in this session. And it's just going to be a really simple model, and all it does is predict what would have happened to passengers on the Titanic. So based on their information, some characteristics of them, whether they were likely to survive or not. And I'm sure you've all heard of the Titanic. Just a quick history lesson. Launched in April 1912, and it was the biggest ship in the world at the time. Everybody knows, unfortunately, that it hit an iceberg and sunk. There was about over 2,000 people on board, and only about 700 survived. Interestingly, the capacity of the lifeboats on the ship was just over 1,000, which was above the legal minimum at the time. And obviously, after this disaster, lots of things changed in regulations for that reason. But we know a lot of data about the passengers on the ship. So we know for every passenger, their name, their gender, their age, what class their ticket was, and how much they paid for their ticket. And crucially, we also know whether they survived or not. So we're going to look at a few passengers first and look at their stories and see if we can, as a room, guess what would have happened to that person. And once we've done that, we're then going to try and build a model that can predict based on new people. So this was Margaret Brown. She was in first class and she was female. She was 44 and she paid about £27 for her ticket, which is about £3,600 in today's money. I'm going to ask if anyone wants to put their hand up and say what they think might have happened to Margaret or not. Yeah?
Survived.
Yeah? And do you have a reason for that?
Rich female.
Yeah?
First class.
Yeah? Yeah, all good. All good options. Yeah, so she did survive. She was nicknamed the unsinkable Molly Brown, and she didn't just survive. She was a very impressive woman, because when she got in the lifeboat, she argued with the lifeboat crew until they turned the lifeboat around back to the ship and to search for more survivors. And then once they got on the rescue ship, she did a whip round of all the first class passengers. And by the time the rescue ship had docked in America, she'd raised $12,000 for the poorer people who had lost everything, which is about $300,000 in today's money. And then when she got back to America, she eventually ran for Senate, and this was 10 years before women could even vote in America. So she was a very impressive woman. We'll look at a few more. This is Thomas Andrews. He was 39, male, first class. Interestingly, his ticket was free, which will make sense when we reveal his story. But I'll just do a show of hands for this one. So who thinks that Thomas Andrews survived? And who thinks that Thomas Andrews didn't survive? Yeah, so we got that one right as well. Sadly, Thomas Andrews didn't survive. He was one of the main architects of the Titanic, and he'd come along on the maiden voyage to see if he could spot any issues that needed to be improved. You're not meant to laugh. Yeah, he knew as soon as it hit the iceberg that the ship was going down, and he spent the rest of the night knocking on doors, getting people out of cabins, helping people into lifeboats. He was offered a position in the lifeboat many times as an important guy, but he turned it down every time. Next we have Ava Hart. This should hopefully be fairly simple. She was 7 and she was in second class. Hands up if you think Ava survived. Yeah, I won't do the other one because that was a clear majority. Yeah, Ava survived. So we know that women and children were more likely to survive because they were given places in the lifeboats. Ava did survive and she lived to the age of 92. She was a fierce critic of the salvage crews who found the wreck of the Titanic in the 80s and were taking relics from the crash from the site and trying to sell them. She considered it a graveyard that shouldn't be disturbed, and I agree with her. Okay, this is the last one, and then we'll move on to building our AI model based on what we know. And this one's a bit tricky. This guy was called John Taylor. He was 17, so he was kind of on the border of being a child or being an adult, and he was in first class. We'll have a show of hands again. Who thinks that John survived? Yeah, and who thinks that John didn't survive? So it's pretty much 50-50, and it's quite a tricky one to figure out. So he was known as Jack. He did actually survive, but he didn't get into a lifeboat. He gave up his place on the lifeboat because he didn't want to take the place of a woman, even though he was under 18. But as the ship was going down, he jumped, and he wrote in his memoirs later on, which were one of the most widely read memoirs of the disaster, that he was sucked underneath the ship and then shot back out again, and he landed near an upturned lifeboat, and he survived. So you can see that we have the information about the passenger, like their data, but it hides quite a lot of detail that can be in people's individual stories. So now we're going to try and automate this and build an AI model that can predict, based on any new passenger, what we think might happen to them. And the way it works is really simple, as I said before. We take the information of the passenger. So in this case, we've just got 3 characteristics. We've got their gender, their age, and their ticket class. The first thing we have to do is turn them into numbers. So the gender is what's known as a binary variable. We turn it into, it has one of 2 values, male or female. If it's male, we'll give it a 0. If it's female, we'll give it a 1. I have got a little pride flag there because it is Pride Month, as you can see. And I know that gender is not binary, and trans people and non-binary people, gender diverse people all exist. But in 1912, the only data we had was male or female, so we treat it as a binary variable. Age is quite simple. It's already a number. The only thing we do is scale it a little bit, so it sits between 0 and 1. And that's just so that it doesn't have an outsized impact on the results. And the ticket class is also already a number. So we take our data, we turn it into numbers, and then we multiply it by things called weights. And a weight is just an importance that we give to that characteristic. And we were already doing this ourselves when we were guessing whether someone survived or not. You know, some people were saying if they were rich, that was important. If they were female, that was important. So the weight is just how important do we think that characteristic is for survival. So we turn it into numbers, we multiply them by weights, we get some other numbers, and then we add them all up. There's some maths, but I'm going to ignore that. And we get a percentage, and that's the model's prediction of how likely this person was to survive. In this case, it's not doing very well. It's saying that Molly had a 33% chance of survival when actually she did survive. But it's not very good because these weights that I've chosen are just randomly initialized, and they don't have any meaning associated to them. So we're going to try and build our model together and set these weights so that we can make the model predict well. So at the moment it's got these random weights and it's predicting with 34% accuracy. So it's looking at about 250 passengers here. The green boxes are the model's predicting correctly, then the grey boxes are it's predicting incorrectly. So it's not a very good model at the moment, it's worse than just guessing, but we're going to try and improve that. So we'll take each characteristic by itself. So we'll start with the top one. So if we think that being female gave you more chance of survival, then we'd put the weight down this end, the positive weight. If we think that being male gave you more chance of survival, we'd put it down this end. So hands up, who thinks we should put it over here? Yeah, almost everyone. Okay, I'm going to have to go over here. So we'll move it a bit over here. So we're now at 51% accuracy, so better. Then we look at age. So if we put the age down here, it means that we think being older made it more likely to survive. And if we put it down here, it means being younger made you more likely to survive. So hands up, who thinks this end? Yeah, no one. And this end? Yeah, you're so much better than the group of year sixes I did this with the other day. Yeah. All right, cool. So up to 71% accuracy. And then final one, ticket class. This end means that a higher ticket class, so like first class, made you more likely to survive. And this end means a lower ticket class, like third class, would make you more likely to survive. So I'm guessing you're going to get this correct. But hands up if we think it goes down this side. Yeah, OK. All right, we'll do that. And then we can get up to like about 78% accuracy or something. If we move this, keep moving it, it gets worse, which just means that we've given the class variable like too much importance. So it's important, but it's not as important as some of the other ones. So we leave it about here and we get about 79% accuracy. But what's important to realize is we've used our knowledge in our brains of the Titanic in order to set these weights, right? We know about the women and children rule. We know about the social hierarchy of 1912 and that rich people were more likely to survive. And we've used that information to set these weights. It would be better if the computer could just set those weights by itself. And luckily, it can. And that's what we call training or learning. So when you hear about an AI learning something, this is all it is. It's twiddling weights by showing it examples. So in this, what I'm going to do here is just show it examples of loads of passengers. It's like 2,000 passengers. Every time it sees a passenger, it makes a guess. And it twiddles its weights so that that guess gets slightly better or slightly less wrong. And it just does that over and over again. And it looks like this. So it's got to the same accuracy that we got to, pretty much, 79%. But the important thing is it hasn't used any knowledge of the Titanic. It doesn't know that these numbers are female, age, and class. They could be any numbers. It doesn't know that it's predicting the survival rate of a person. It could be anything. It's just figured out the patterns in the numbers and set the weights accordingly. Does that make sense? But it doesn't work every time. So here's an example of a case where that model that we've just trained with the same weights is not doing very well. So this is Augusta Goodwin. She sadly didn't survive, but our model is predicting that she had a 51% chance of survival, which is, it's saying it doesn't know, right? It's a guess, could go either way. So we'd like to improve that and make that percentage lower so it's more accurate. And one of the reasons that our model at the moment is not doing very well is because it's treating all of these inputs as independent variables. And there's no way of like mixing them together. So we can say that being female was important, but we can't say that being female was important only if you were in first class, for example. And one of the interesting things about the Titanic was your ticket class was the importance of what ticket class you had depended massively on your gender, right? And the reason for that is because if you were a woman, if you got to a lifeboat, you most likely would have survived because women were given places over men. So getting to the lifeboats was really, really important, and people in first class found it much easier to get to the lifeboats. People in third class had, for various reasons, signage being lower down in the ship, found it much harder. So the class was really, really important if you were a woman. And if you were a man, your class didn't really matter that much, because even if you got to the lifeboats, you probably wouldn't have got a place. But there's no way for our model to encode that at all. It can just say class is important or it's not important. It can't say, depending on your gender, it's a different amount of importance. And one of the ways we can fix this is we add what's called a hidden layer. And this is basically so each of these little circles is basically like an output from like what we had before. And each of these little circles has a set of weights that connect to the inputs. And these are all trained when we show it examples. And when we run an example through the model, we do exactly the same thing. We turn the inputs into numbers, we multiply them all together in these weights, and then each of these hidden neurons gets a value, and then we multiply them by more weights, and we get a prediction. So it's the same thing, it's just more weights nested together. And in this case, it gets slightly better. It's now predicting 39% for Augusta. Okay, like quick recap, because that was a lot of numbers and stuff. So what have we done? We took the passenger data and we turned it into numbers, and then we multiply those numbers by some weights, we add them all up, and we get a prediction. And then to set the correct values for the weights, we just show it examples and twiddle the weights as we go along. Large language models like ChatGPT, anything you've used, Claude, things like this, they are exactly the same as this, just on a much bigger scale. But it's the exact same thing, and this is how it works. So in our Titanic example, we had our inputs were attributes of the passenger, gender, ticket class, age. In ChatGPT or something like that, your inputs are your prompt, the words that you've typed in. So the first thing we do is turn them into numbers, and that's a process called tokenization. I'm not going to go into it, but you basically turn the words into numbers, and then you put the numbers into here. Before we had, like 3 weights, because we had 3 different characteristics. The slightly more complex model I showed before had about 50 weights. ChatGPT has trillions and trillions of weights. But it's the same thing. You put the numbers in, you times them all together, you add them all up, and you get an output. And in our Titanic case, we had the output was the percentage likelihood we thought of that person surviving. In something like ChatGPT, you don't just have one output, you have an output for every single word in the English language. And so each word gets a percentage, and then we choose the word that has the highest percentage. So in this case, we've put in our prompt, how did Steve do the magic trick? And it's come up with the most likely next word being A. And the way that large language models work is you then feed that first word back into the prompt and you run the whole thing again. So we now put that back into the prompt, we run the whole thing again, and we get another word, very, and we just keep doing that until it decides to stop. So it's come up with an answer, a very simple trick. And that in a nutshell is how ChatGPT, large language models work. It's exactly the same thing, just much, much bigger. Yeah, and when I say much, much bigger, it's much, much, much bigger. So we had our first model that we trained had 3 weights, 3 attributes that we were training. The one with the hidden layer that I showed you had about 50 weights. ChatGPT, it's not public information, but it's estimated has about 1.8 trillion weights. That's about 9 times the number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy, which is big, but still quite a hard number to understand. So I'm going to try and help you understand how big that number is with the help of some rice. So I've got some rice here. So if you imagine each weight is like a grain of rice, okay? So our first model that we did train together is sort of 3 grains, I'm dropping it everywhere. 3 grains of rice, a pinch in your hand. And then the second model we trained with the hidden layer had about 50 weights in it. And so that pot has 49 grains in now. It did have 50 grains of rice in it. And I know that because my daughter helped me count those last night. Bless her. So 50 weights, okay. So a bag of rice from the supermarket like this, it's probably have about 50,000 grains of rice in it. So we're still quite a long way away. And today we're in the Catalyst, Newcastle. This is the Faraday room. This room has a floor area of 59 square meters. And I know that because I emailed reception and they sent me the floor plan. So if we've got a big JCB digger up to the door and we filled the whole room up with rice to the ceiling, apart from finding it hard to breathe, that would be about 10 billion grains of rice. So to get to 1.8 trillion, we're still quite far away. We'd take all that rice in this room that's all filled up to the top. We'll keep going up and up and up, up, and you'd get to about 800 meters, which is about the height of the Burj Khalifa, tallest building in the world, which is like 2 Eiffel Towers stacked on top of each other. So it's much bigger. Yeah, and when I showed us training the Titanic model, I said that we showed it examples. I showed it about 2,000 examples of passengers. Something like ChatGPT, when it was trained, it's estimated that it was shown about 13 trillion words, which is 6 times the number of words in all of the books, periodicals, and journals in the British Library, all added up. If you wanted to read that number of words at an average reading pace, you'd need to have started about 100,000 years ago, which is before humans had left Africa. So you start reading, you're reading through the entire of human history, the invention of agriculture, the building of the pyramids, ancient Rome, world wars, and the invention of the internet, and you get to now and you'd be just about finished. And when we trained our model, I showed you it training in the browser. It took about 10 seconds. I'd slowed that down just so we could see the process. It would have been much quicker otherwise. To train something like ChatGPT, it's estimated that they use about 25,000 GPUs. GPU is a graphics processing unit, which is something that you use in gaming PCs or high-end, stuff like this, training GPUs. So there are 25,000 of them, which is like a medium-sized football stadium, all full, all running 24/7, day and night for 3 months. And there's a couple more. I'm hamming it a bit, but it's trying to get the point across there. It's massive. And to train something like ChatGPT, the energy that would have used is about 50 gigawatt hours, which is enough to power every house in Newcastle for about 2 months. And finally, if we look at how much money is being spent on building infrastructure for AI, so like data centers, buying up GPUs and things like that, 2025, the capital expenditure on AI was around $320 billion from these big tech giants like Google and Amazon people, which is a bit more than the entire GDP of Finland. So it's big, right? Really, really big. Much, much bigger. Okay, so I promised I'd show you how the trick was done, Ed. Yeah. And this is the trick. So when I was writing your number down, I didn't actually write anything down. And when you told me the number, I had a piece of pencil lead on my thumb, and then I wrote the number down after you told me it. So it's boring, right? It's when you know the trick, it's really boring. And it's the same with AI. All it is you turn the words into numbers, you multiply it by loads and loads of weights, you add them all up, and the biggest number is the next word. And that's all it is. To set the values of the weights, we show it loads and loads of examples, and we twiddle the weights a bit. Okay, let me just have a drink. Okay, so I've just spent, about half an hour telling you that AI isn't magic, okay? But I might have lied a little bit, because there is something in there that is a bit magic that we still don't really understand, and it's this phenomenon called emergence. And I'm going to show you this little video quickly to show you what I mean by that, and then I'll talk about it. So these are, I don't know if anyone's seen this before, these are starlings. This is called a murmuration. So each bird in the group is following like some very simple rules. They're wanting to try and stay close to their neighbor. They're wanting to try and move in the same direction as their neighbor, and they wanted to try and not hit into their neighbor. But when you scale it up to like thousands of birds like this, you get these amazing intricate patterns in the sky. And AI and large language models are a bit like this. I've shown you exactly how they work under the hood. We know how all of those bits work. It's just multiplying weights together. But when you scale it up to billions and trillions of weights, suddenly it can do stuff that no one ever really expected. It can write poetry. It can do most of my job now. It can write code. And even the people who designed these models and worked on them were surprised when they scaled it up high enough and it started to be able to do these things. And this is what's called emergence. No one really knows why it works, but it just does. And I think that's pretty cool. So final sort of take home from this talk, hopefully, if you remember one thing, is it's not magic. It's very simple under the hood. It's just numbers, multiplying them all together, just on a really, really big scale. So the next time you get a guy like this come to your company, trying to sell you the next AI whiz-bang cure for everything, maybe just have a little think about what you know about how it works, and think twice, I guess. That's it. Thanks for having me.